everybody. So my talk today is very much featured on a bit of a back to the future theme, but it's really focusing on integrity reporting, inspection reporting that all of us do. Certainly if we're in the asset integrity field, we all do it. We all report on asset condition. So it's just exploring what hopefully the future looks like for that type of technology or that type of activity.
Perfect. Okay, well, your 20 minutes starts now. Fire away.
All right, thank you again, Andy, and good morning, everybody. I hope you're all safe and well in these troubled times. And I hope you're all sitting comfortably, maybe with a cup of coffee in your hand or some popcorn or snacks. Seem to be eating loads and loads of snacks nowadays. And we'll go on a little journey over the next 20 minutes or so. Please feel free to contribute your thoughts, your questions. I am actually interested to hear everybody's experiences. I know we've got a wide range of different companies, different people on the call. So put your hand up, put your comments in the chat. They would be welcomed, and obviously we will discuss anything at the end. So before I sort of jump in, I'm just going to set the scene and get you all thinking and try to get you thinking in a slightly different way. We're all used to these discussions about integrity reporting, inspection reporting, and we all know that we need to change it. We all understand that there's different ideas out there, and we talk about this on a regular basis, whether it's through our daily communications within our teams or if it's through different forums and panel discussions. But then we tend to go back to our day jobs. Okay, they'll all be slightly different now, but nothing really changes. So I want to tap into that and tap into something a bit different and explore what could the future look like, hence the Back to the Future theme, and really just to see what can we do to change things. So what I want you to do today, hopefully, is embrace that thought, capture your imagination, and like I say, no comment, no question, no thought will be frowned upon, because the more we share, the more we actually listen and understand what some of the challenges are, the more we can maybe do to change it. And as I always say, and a lot of people do, you know, I talk to a lot of people and I always say, you know, we need to use our imagination more. If we don't use our imagination, we don't have innovation. And without innovation, we have no future. You kind of get my theme now that I'm going through this whole Back to the Future piece. So you kind of say, well, why do we need to change it? Is the process broken? We still go out and we're still doing reporting. But I think we've all agreed it's very inefficient and there's some flaws with it. Not only around data quality, some of the information we're getting back, the re-inspection we need to do, and we're not even going to touch into the whole legacy data piece because that's obviously a challenge. So before we start looking at the future, I think we need to take a step back in time and understand what is the problem. So welcome to 2009. Why 2009? Well, it was the earliest report I could get. I did reach out to the integrity community in the last week or two to get some historic reports just to see where the templates and how we did things. So 2009 was one of the earliest ones. Like I say, we don't really want to touch in today on legacy data and data management because that's a whole different topic and one you could spend hours talking about as well. So 2009, what did we do? For those that are my age, it was kind of a fairly standard process, very much paper-based. And this could be 1999 because I graduated and first started working in integrity in 1996. Shows you I've been in the industry a little longer than some. So yeah, so it was very much paper-based. We would collate all the drawings together. We would either print them off of our different document management systems. We'd highlight them with our markers where we wanted to do the inspection. We'd photocopy them, put them into work packs, get the corrosion engineers to sign off on them, etc., and wrap it all up in a nice big brown paper and send it offshore via our helicopters. Our offshore team received said work packs, and those work packs could be out for a long time depending on the work scope, and they tend to usually photocopy them. So they had their hard or dirty copies, and they would go out on the plant and do their inspection and work through those. Nothing wrong with that, works fairly well. They would take notes, scribble on their drawings, do what they need to do, take some photographs, and come back in and type up the report in one of the type templates that we see in front of us. And then they would hard copy sign it from themselves. It would be signed off by potentially the offshore team and then come on shore and be signed off from the integrity or the inspection engineering department on shore. Obviously, if there was something urgent that needed to be addressed with, if they found something, they would be flagged it up through email, etc., etc. But the report would get its way through the system and the work pack would come back. And then we would archive said work pack and put it into the RBA, and we would then determine when the next inspection interval was. Very subjectively and very semi-quantitative. So that's how we did it in 2009. So let's see how we do it in present day. And welcome to 2019. Kind of looks the same. So 2019, 2020, still paper-based in the terms of we might send out electronically, but I am aware of some people still sending out paper-based copies. And we go out, we do the inspection, we fill in the report, and we have moved ahead digitally because we now have digital signatures. So we don't hard copy sign them anymore, we have digital signatures, so we can send the report back electronically through email. Still quite manually handling. There are also some companies out there that are attempting to do tablet-based entry. And from my experience and from some of the discussions I've had recently, that is still in the development phase and not routinely rolled out on a regular basis. So it's still going through, not to say proof of concept, but certainly going through early adoption stage of tablet-based entry. And there are some challenges associated with that, very much around, are you tied into one service provider? How do you get the data back in with validation? And are the underlying database reporting systems configured and set up with the right data in the first place? So there are some challenges there. And anybody that's eagerly-eyed spotted, these are the same inspection report for the same vessel, just 10 years apart. And somewhere along the line, this vessel has gone through some significant material changes. Because in the first report, the nominal thickness was 13 mil, and now we seem to only have 12 mil. And in the first report, our corrosion allowance was 3.5 mil. And when we filled in this report, there is no corrosion allowance. So again, the data that we're using and providing to our inspectors isn't always accurate. And we're making decisions based on some of these reports. So you kind of think, where does the whole digitalization and the change needed for inspection management when some of the data that we have from different type of reporting is obviously challenging and not as accurate as we would like. So sometimes you think, have we actually missed the digital transformation? You know, if we start to look at it in different areas and compare it to other parts of our life. If you look at our phones, 2009, that's what a Samsung Galaxy phone looked like. In 2018, this is what it looks like, you know. So technology in our daily lives has moved on considerably in the whole how we use data, how we manage, how we use our systems. You know, none of us are very far from our phones nowadays. We use it for everything that we do. We run our lives, all our banking's done on it, our emails, our WhatsApping, and even now using Facebook or Facebook Messenger and FaceTime to communicate with our families. If we didn't have a phone or a tablet, we kind of would be lost. But we don't seem to have managed to translate that to our offshore environment. So when they start looking at the future and say, well, actually, how do we then move? So let's just jump into the future and see what we can predict or think that may happen. And one of the things, and again, referencing back to my Back to the Future piece, and a quote from Doc Brown, is our future hasn't been written yet. No one's has. It's our future, whatever we make of it, so let's make it a good one. And I quite like that statement because it really does say, well, the future hasn't been written yet, so we can do what we need to do. And then if anybody's ever spoken to me, I don't know who's again on the line, and they've come into the OGTC and spoken to us, I have said on a number of times, go be brave, use your imagination and bring me someone that pushes the boundaries. And I still stand by that we do need to think slightly differently. We do need to think, how can we do things differently? And maybe we need to think about it and step away from this more traditional approach, where we're sending people offshore on ropes, using tablets, or using bits of paper. So rather than trying to say, how do we digitalize the process, how do we actually change the process altogether? So we've been working with a couple of companies in this space, and I know there's probably others out there that are maybe working on their own or haven't come or not quite far in the development stage to start talking about what they're doing. But certainly we have a couple of companies we're working with that are starting to think about how to do it differently. So we are working on a project with GDI. I'm sure if anybody wants to know more information about them and what they're doing, we can easily pass on details, and I'm sure Gareth and Gianni will be more than willing to talk through what their plans are. So if you start looking about, well, actually, how do we do the process completely different? How do you do paperless integrity reporting and actually start using photogrammetry or scanning technologies to be able to identify the condition? So taking an image and then being able to use AI, machine learning, and all those other digital buzzwords that I'm not overly familiar with because I'm an engineer that wants to know about integrity rather than how an AI system works. But if you use our software people and the digital people to actually use some of the technologies out there to start managing our assets more effectively, you can then start overlaying and understanding the different conditions, as this image shows here, with the different corrosion patches and measuring it. From there, you can determine an inspection scope or a fabric maintenance piece. And again, in this example, being able to highlight, taking an image and being able to highlight. And then that from there can give you the condition of the asset from its overall health. So that's fine for day-to-day activity, going out and doing inspection, but a lot of our decision and a lot of our information is based on previous inspection and previous results. So then when you look at Imbrand, again, another company we're working with their ADA platform, and their next phase of ADA is about using the legacy data that they have and being able to spot trends and use the data more effectively and work through the different systems that you have and different amount of data silos you have, and being able to process and spot trends 90% faster than any of the manual processes that we would normally do. And again, just some of the work they've been doing on being able to spot trends and actually take away some of the noise, especially on wall thickness readings, when we have millions and millions of data points, and really understanding where the real trend and where the real threats are. Another project that Imbrand have been working on with us. But then when you say, what if you combine the two of those? So if you work with like the GDI, the scanning technology, and I'm sure, let's say, this could be other companies out there working on those type of technologies. But if you take that external visual machine learning ability to understand what the condition is from the external point of view, and then you overlay that onto a digital twin or point cloud type infrastructure, and then use the ADA type technology, data analytics, again, there'll be others out there working on these type of solutions. And especially if you start taking inside in the internal condition and overlaying the two. And from there, you have a very powerful way of monitoring and managing your integrity without actually having to do a paper report. And this could then become very powerful, and you can do it at any time. You can be going out and identifying areas of high risk and looking at your cumulative risk and understanding where you can plan work scopes rather than sending out our traditional inspector, sending information back in and doing desktop reviews. So when did we take the human out of the loop? Because we are now advancing in robotics, we have a few robotic programs out there. We've got the TOROB robotic program with Total. I know Boston Dynamics are potentially doing some trials with their animal type robotics. And then you've got the drones and that of the world that are out gathering visual data. So when you combine the likes of the visionary type technology with the data analytics and then a robot gathering it, you can really see where the future will be, that we don't actually need to have an inspector out there doing physical inspection anymore. And then we talk about, is that the future? Well, the JDI project is just about finished. It's ready to go. They're in final stages. ADA phase 1 has been completed and is out in the market, and phase 2 is underway and will be ready in a few months' time. So we're not actually really talking about the future. We're talking about the here and now. It is there. And some of these robotics programs are in test, are in flight. So maybe when we talk about the future, we're not talking about 2035. Maybe we're only talking about 2025. So we've sort of looked at, there's technologies available or emerging and coming into the market. So what's stopping us? Where is the blocker? Because I see that that is one of the challenges. And one of the things we do get, and again, we talk to a lot of people, is very much around service companies saying, we bring innovation to our operators and they're not interested. They don't want to be adopters. They don't want to trial it. They don't want to give us the opportunity to do something differently. They just want us to do business as usual. Then when we speak to the operators, they say our service companies don't bring us any innovation. They just are interested in doing same old, and we keep pushing them to bring us innovation. They don't. So somewhere along the line, something's got mismatched. And yes, we can go into some of the discussions around commercial and contractual agreements and incentive effect, but really, that has to be a discussion that you can have as well and alongside the technology that you're bringing through. And I suppose recent events have actually shown that once you're forced into doing something and set your mind to it, you can actually make the difference. And maybe that's what we need. We maybe need something to force us into doing it slightly different. If anybody sat in their house, in their offices in February and went, do you know something? Next month, we're all going to work from home. We're all going to use Zoom and Teams, and everything's going to be virtual, and I'm going to be sitting in my jammies speaking to everybody around the world. You would have been, no, it's never going to work. Well, no, it's not as efficient. We'll miss the interaction. The internet will fall over. The technology's not there. We'll never do it. We have done it. We're doing it very successfully. Yes, there's some challenges. Yes, it's not fit for everybody. But the majority of people I've spoken to, not only in our sector, but in other sectors, this is working. We are managing to do our work in a completely different way. And I've also spoken to companies that are saying, we don't actually know if we need an office. We don't actually know if we'll ever go back to doing the 9 to 5. We don't know if we will ever use that approach that you have to go to work. It's just something that we actually just do nowadays. We just do work wherever we are. So COVID-19 made us work differently. So what do we need to do to make sure our offshore inspection reporting is different? And that's when we kind of get in this sort of limbo land where some of the ideas that come through are a bit half-baked. You know, we don't know how robots are going to work offshore. We don't know how effective they're going to be. And we do a lot of talking about them and understanding, you know, the ideas are very much abstract and nobody actually says, how do we actually do something? So even when you start looking at like tablet-based entry or new database systems, we kind of go back to what we're comfortable with rather than saying, well, let's try something and see how we get on. And a lot of that time then we do some incremental changes. So when you look at the 2009 report to the 2019 report, over 10 years we did some incremental changes to the process, but nothing majorly and nothing really changed. Then you start looking at, oh, we'll go for tablet-based entry. Again, it's kind of incremental change. And with that, you're never really seeing that fundamental shift change. But if you actually just focused and we actually work together, we could actually make a big difference and make some of those ideas a bit more fully baked rather than half-baked. And to sort of finish on the reference of my Back to the Future theme, and I quite like this quote as well, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. So I think as an industry out there, as individuals, as companies, whether you're a small SME startup or whether you're a big operating entity, that if we actually put our mind to it and somebody actually says, I'm going to make a change, then we will be able to move towards future. And I do have to apologise, I have lied. I did manage to put a DeLorean into my PowerPoint presentation. So that is my thoughts. I'm more than willing to open up discussions. Andy is our host, so he will be able to control anybody's mic. So if you do want to come in and speak and open up a debate, so we can go into a bit of a panel discussion if you want to, or if you just have some questions that you want to ask myself, then please drop a note into chat and I will endeavour to answer those questions. So thank you for your time today. Back to you, Andy.
Thank you, Rebecca. So yeah, do we have any questions? I don't see any questions in the chat so far. Does anyone want to raise their hand and ask a question? I noticed Gareth from GDI is on the line. Shall we pick on him? Any questions? Oh, we've got one hand. Let me find that. Ian Drummond, your mic is unmuted now. Hi, Ian. It won't unmute.
Oh, don't say we fail on the technology side when I'm talking about robots in the future and we can't even use Zoom.
Is that unmuted now, Andy?
Right.
Yes, I can hear you, Ian.
Okay, morning. That was a great presentation. Thank you very much, Rebecca. It's not really a statement, it's more of a question. Have you guys tied into UCAS with regards to the reporting criteria and what our obligations are under 17020?
So we are aware, and obviously we do speak to, I haven't had a huge amount of engagement with UCAS. I am obviously from a background aware of all the different requirements. I do speak to the HSC regularly as well. We are aware of the challenges and some of the issues around the UCAS accreditation, and to show either competency and to demonstrate the methods and process that people go through. So it's one of these ones we'll have to take them on that journey. It's not, we're not disregarding to say that we'll have to engage with these bodies as well. But until we come up with a plan, it's quite difficult to engage with them to say this is what we're planning to do. And I think that's where we need to work with, like, so the inspection companies and service companies to really understand what can and can't be done, but at the same time pushing back into these companies to say, if we can demonstrate that we have a robust method, we can ensure consistency, we can ensure that the integrity sort of management process and the assessment process is being adhered to, albeit just we're doing it in a different way, I think they will be on board. And I think that's where the HSC project, there is an HSC project out there as well that some of you might be aware of on remote visual inspection techniques and that. So there are other areas about the quality of data and some of the competency of data coming back as well. So we are aware of it, yes.
Okay, thank you. I noticed a statement from Chris, not so much a question. So Chris is saying the time for change is now. If we cannot capitalise on the COVID-19 situation that has forced us into minimum manning on our production sites and remote working, we will never be able to implement major change.
And that's, I totally agree with that statement, you know, and that's why the whole COVID-19, you know, I said that an example for us onshore working, we managed to do things completely different, and it's a bit easier. It's an easier process to manage. It's been easier for people just to go from sitting at a desk to moving to whatever location they can find in their house, where there's a desk, a kitchen table, or your kid's playroom type thing. So that has obviously been easier to maybe force that change. And I know some of the operators are having challenges with the down manning and minimal manning offshore. So yes, this is the time to embrace it, which is why I'm saying I don't know if it's the 2035 vision, but maybe we should look at the 2025 vision, or it could be the 2021 vision. And any companies that want to move forward, support, look at some of the projects we're doing, take some of that technology and try it if you're more from the operator or end user point of view, or if you're a service company, let's say whether you're a small company or one of the larger ones that have technologies that can really help and support this move away from those reporting. I mean, interesting was I reached out to a lot of the service companies and operators just asking for sample reports. That's why they're all anonymized and that. So this is not one company does it this way. This is an industry we do it all this way. This is not one of the service companies does it this way and the other one does it completely transformatively different. It was actually eye-opening, just all the different companies' formats were kind of all the same. And over the years, I mean, I got reports from 2019 all the way back. I said the oldest one was 2009. So over the 10-year time frame, none of those reporting methods had changed significantly. So that's why this is a group effort, I think, maybe, which then when you come into a group effort even, that can be then challenging because who takes the lead on it? Because if somebody doesn't take the lead, then we tend to just talk about it a lot more than we actually do any action. So anybody brave out there that wants to take on the challenge, I'll certainly help support, and I'm sure others would as well.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions? I don't see any more hands raised. Oh, James Strong. James, you're now unmuted. No, you're not. Hannah, can you unmute James, please?
James, if you can accept the unmute on your computer. Should have popped up.
Yeah, I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, okay, cool. Thanks for that. That was really interesting, Rebecca. You talked about mismatch between service providers and the operators. I think that's quite an interesting point. What do you think we can do as a collective between service providers and operators to break that down when apparently people are innovating on the service providing side, yet the operators don't see it or don't feel like it's happening or are still asking for it? What can we do to remove that mismatch?
That is, I think to me is one of the fundamental barriers we need to get over first to make this successful. I think taking away from some of the commercial, because we do get some of the pushback to say, well, if we're bringing innovation, we need better margins, we need better commercial terms, and that's not going to be resolved overnight, and that's a different discussion in my eyes. Okay, it's very pertinent and it will drive a lot of what's coming through, but I think what it needs is a clearer understanding from the service companies that are bringing new innovation through on the why and the benefits. Now, I get this a lot within the OGTC. We see a lot of people, a lot of companies that come to us with their idea, and technically there's usually nothing wrong with them, but the why do I care, why do I need it isn't quite there. And if you don't have that piece, then it's quite difficult sometimes from somebody on the other side to go, well, why should I bother? And we've got an interesting, and again, if anybody follows OGTC, I think one of the Tech20s a few weeks ago was from Ruby Roberts, who's been doing a lot of work on the human factor side of technology adoption. And there's a lot of piece around the incentive and the motivation of individuals. So it's not always down to a commercial thing, which is why I'm saying that's a slightly separate conversation. It's about being able to get that person to understand that actually if they try this could make a big difference without them feeling like they're putting too much risk on a decision, saying, well, if I do it and it goes wrong, will I get sacked for it? So I think there has to be those sort of discussions, open discussions to say, let's try this, it may not work, but if it does, this is what the benefits will be. And until we can actually get that value proposition bit really sorted, then I think we will always have that bit of a barrier. And then I think from the other side, the operators do need to take on a bit more of a, okay, then we might have to put a bit more cost into it just for the short term. So it's that sort of investment, that return on investment piece. But unless you actually give that support, then nothing will move forward either. So I think there has to be ownership on both sides and an understanding of, yes, we will take on a bit more and maybe have to give a bit more commercial incentive to do it. But at the same time, the service companies need to come through with this is the why and this is why you need it, which is not always clear.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I tend to agree that when you develop a new piece of technology, you get quite excited about it, it's great, and it probably is great, but you have to remember that the person that you're trying to sell it to needs to know what's great about it and where the value is. If there's value proposition, you're absolutely right. If you haven't got a value proposition for your piece of kit, new technology, that you need to develop that as well as the technology.
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to knowing who your audience is, because again, when you're speaking at different levels within companies, so if you're speaking to a budget holder, they necessarily don't want to know about the actual technical side. They just want to know what the business case side is. So being able to articulate that, whereas if you're speaking to the technical teams, they want to know about the technical piece and how it either makes their jobs easier and more effective, or give them better data to manage the assets. I do see it a lot again within the OGTC, because I'm an integrity engineer background. So when I look at projects and look at ideas, I can see it from the technical, but when I take it through, if we're funding projects, when it goes more into the management side, people that are actually going to actually invest in these technologies, you do have to change the messaging to be more business case orientated. And sometimes I think a lot of our developers don't always understand that they have to use different sales techniques maybe in the different areas that they're talking to in businesses.
Okay, thank you, James, for the question. I've got a couple more here in the chat function. Let me see. So from Elaine Maslin, she is asking, what are the main challenges when it comes to adopting robotics / remote work on brownfield sites, topside and subsea? Thinking communications, connectivity, old control systems, power, etc.
All of those, Elaine, all of those. Robotics and AI is a whole different discussion, and one that will does feature heavily in OGTC roadmaps and our forward strategy. We've got some initiatives looking at demanning platforms, and brownfield sites is always going to be a challenge. There is the communication piece. These platforms were never designed for these robots. These robots are never designed for harsh environments and extreme environments. Taking a robot that's potentially being workshop based or designed for a workshop and taking it offshore is always going to be difficult. So that is more your 2035. That isn't going to be next year, next week, or in 2025. But at the end of the day, they're only a platform where you're gathering data from. So if you have the integrity reporting side sorted, and like to say the JDI and Imran's type companies who have got the tools or the sensor capability, then how you deploy that in a robotic form will eventually will come through in the next few years.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a couple of questions coming in. So I've got a question from John Owen. He's saying classification societies are great innovators. How might the offshore industry work closer with class and develop technology in parallel with their R&D?
So yes, again, my background, I used to work for Lloyd's Register, which is a classification society, so I'm very aware of class and some of the work that gets done in that forum. It's like everything is just raising awareness, it's working together, and it always just comes back to that whole business case of bringing technology that will make a difference. And sometimes, and that's why I talk about this incremental change. When you come with the technology, it's kind of incremental. It's like, that's fine. And then when you bring the technologies that are completely different and disruptive, then people get nervous. So it's finding that balance and bringing that journey all the way through. And sometimes the qualification process does help that, in the classification side and verification side will also help some of these technologies as they come through. Again, another challenge on when you're verifying or certifying technology that's unproven, that doesn't have a standard to work to, then we do need to look at alternative ways of doing things as well, and making sure that the technology has been gone through rigorous testing as well. So I think it comes back to that same message of we have to work together. I'm not going to use the collaboration word because everybody gets to the stage where, but we do need to raise awareness of what individuals are doing or what different groups are doing, and then whether it's like through the OGTC type function of the networking and the innovation, platforms like this that allow us to discuss in a more open format of what's been done.
Okay, thank you. So I've got another statement from Chris Kidd at Total. So he's saying there's a balance and effort needed between operator and service provider. Operators have appetite for trialing tech, but need some quick wins on business value generation to keep that appetite and willingness to try tech alive from management.
Totally agree, Chris. As we're saying, the value proposition sometimes falls away, sometimes, or we don't quite get there. Quick wins. So yes, stage gating, not going in to say like we're going to boil the ocean in a whirl, going with that stage gate approach with a plan. Technology roadmap gets used quite a lot. So again, I am aware of some companies do have a bit more of a stage or a phased approach to the way they're doing innovation, and they're interesting, those concepts, and I do think that's where we do need to go if we want to successfully get buy-in at the different stages and the progression through the technology readiness scale. So if it's sitting at prototype or early stage, understanding where the different stages are and where you need the support and have a bit more of a plan for deployment and testing in field. So yes.
Thank you.
I do have to apologise, Chris, that was the only picture I could find of a Torob. It seems to be an older one, so I know the Torob robot has significantly changed over the last few years in its development cycle. So apologies, Chris.
Okay, so I have about 3 more questions. I will allow Musa El Samani to talk next. You should be unmuted.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi there.
Thank you very much for the interesting presentation. My question regarding funding, because development always, especially in a very complicated oil and gas, it requires a lot of funding. Do you think funding outside oil and gas companies it's limited for new companies and startups, or there is a pool of investors that are willing to take and jump into the oil and gas startup? Thank you.
So if you say you're an oil and gas startup or is there investment in oil and gas, yeah, there has been some challenges associated with investment in this area due to some of the other factors before COVID around the whole net zero, etc., etc. There is still investment. It's part of the whole energy piece, energy transition, and you know, whether oil and gas is going to be here for a long time yet. We need to clean up our operations, we need to downman, we need to do alternative ways of working, and we've all said that's an industry and there's lots of work going on in that space. And it comes back to that value proposition. If you bring the right technology to an industry and it's got the where, the why, or the I need this, you will find investment for it. And that just comes down to, if there's a market and a customer need, then there will be investment. And we see investment. We work with a lot of investors with some of our startup TechX cohort. They've had investment and they're still receiving investment through different funding rounds. Also, we've got ourselves that help invest in technologies, and we know some of the other companies that are in the space working in bringing new technology. And as I've said on a number of occasions, integrity management is not an oil and gas problem, it's an asset management problem. So, integrity inspection reporting, whether it's an offshore oil rig to a wind turbine to an onshore power plant, or when you do your MOT in a car, it's the same thing. It's, we're pretty much industry agnostic. So we're just trying to solve one of the challenges within an oil and gas form, but if we can learn from others, then that would be great. But also, yeah, in answer to your question, there is investment out there for startups and for bigger companies as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are drawing to a close. We do have 2 questions left. One from Matthew Lewin. Are you doing work to see what design changes can be adopted for planned installations to allow robots to be used more effectively?
So yes, one of the parts that we work with within OGTC, one of our strategy pieces is very much around facility of the future, and it's about the greenfield, the new build, designing out some of our problems, whether it's for robotic access or even our equipment. One of our initiatives recently has been around a non-intrusive inspection for pressure vessels. So design your pressure vessels differently so we don't need to go inside them. So we do look at, we're looking at alternative materials and different ways we can manage or design our plants for the future. It's always one of those things. The challenges of today are very much brownfield, very much on our operating, especially in our tough economic environment that we're finding ourselves in now with low oil price and COVID. So operation costs, whatever we can do to help drive those down to keep the basin sustainable is obviously one of the biggest focal points, but new design, new ways are also being worked on within the OGTC as well.
Okay, thank you. Last question. So this is from Bob Taylor. Are we in danger of being distracted by gadgets and technologies and taking our eye off the basics of good, solid inspection management?
I would say no. I know where you're coming from, Bob. I sometimes say, well, and that's why I asked the question, is the process broken? If it's not broken, why do we need to fix it? But at the same time, we've all agreed, every single one of us would agree that our current process, our practices, our way we inspect items is inefficient and it has problems around data quality. It can differ between inspector to inspector. And one of the other challenges we have is we have a skill shortage. How do we attract new talent into an industry that doesn't want to work in oil and gas, doesn't want to go offshore, doesn't want to be an inspector? So if the generation that's coming behind us want gadgets and are more familiar with using a phone than actually speaking to, use the phone for everything else but actually phoning. I mean, I have a 16-year-old at home that I tried to phone him the other day and he said, I don't actually know how to answer this phone really, because he's had his phone for a year, he's never phoned anybody on it. But it's never out his hand. So the gadgets and the gizmos is kind of where we need to go, because if not, we're going to be left behind and nobody will want to work in our industry. I'm not the biggest tech savvy person going. I do adopt, I've been forced into a bit with COVID, as we're all learning how to use Zoom and Teams. Hadn't used Teams until March this year. Hadn't used it, didn't know how to use it, but I was forced into it. So, and now I love it. And it's like everything else. Once you get familiar with the tech, once you get familiar with the gizmos, you do then wonder, how did we actually manage without it before? And that's where the industry will go, and that's what we need to do. So I don't think we'll be distracted. I just think we need to give the tools for people to do their jobs more effectively.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. So that's us for today. Apologies if I've missed your question, but do feel free to go over to our LinkedIn post and we can continue discussions there. Rebecca, thank you for the presentation today. A lot of comments saying it was really on point, so that's brilliant. So yeah, thanks very much. Have a good weekend. Thank you for your participation, and we'll speak soon. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.